So I'm very happy here to be with Liina to talk about something that is close to my heart and I think close to a lot of you right now, because we're entering in a paradox where everybody wants more flexibility, but we also are looking for real connection. So how are we going to solve this paradox? And Liina is an expert in this field, so I would love to give Liina the chance to explain a bit about her experience working for Deel. But before I start into the questions, Liina, welcome. Thanks for being here with me. Could you share a little bit with the audience your experience?
Thank you, Jaïr. I guess I'm a bit of a strange animal in the sense that I've been working remotely for the past 10 years in various different startups, some businesses of my own, but previously it was seen as something strange or privilege, and suddenly we're all in it, and now people expect it, but it comes with a lot of challenges.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and Deel has gone to tremendous growth the last couple of years, and you joined, I think, 1 or 2 years ago, and you worked with a lot of remote clients for you that are entering the remote world. I'm curious, what were the most important learnings that you got from working with these clients?
Yes, I joined Deel last year, and we ourselves are a completely remote company as well. But this specifically in the region where I'm from, which is the Baltics, we have a lot of startups that are growing really, really quickly, but we are a region of a very small population. So for our startups, I would say it's not only necessarily the pandemic that pushed people towards, and companies towards remote work. It's the fact that when you're growing quickly, you can't do it without a team, and you can either try and steal the employees from other companies, or you're going to have to look elsewhere. And the Baltics aren't really this destination where you would want to move to that easily due to the weather. So it's definitely a necessity for companies to grow.
Okay, so the need for talent was the biggest struggle that you noticed. Okay, I was curious to if you're building those remote teams and you get people from everywhere outside of every corner of the world, how do you go about, for example, salaries? Is that something that you standardize, or how do you work? What do you advise your clients to do there?
Yes, that's an interesting topic, and it's a tricky one. So we most likely remember the scandal that Google went through when they decided to reduce the salaries of their team members when they moved away from California. So, I mean, if you're increasing salaries, then the conversation usually goes well. When you're decreasing them, not so much. Because for the employee, they're saying, well, I'm still doing the same amount of work, my worth should be the same. How come am I now getting paid less? And when companies are hiring globally, there is also this, they lack the know-how. What is expected in the market? What should you be offering? So from Deel side, what we've built is we have this indicator which shows you average salaries for different roles in different regions, which helps recruiters and founders understand what is expected. But also we of course see this inside Deel as well, because we are a company with 971 employees to date, and we are in 65 different countries. So these topics have come up internally as well, so we're building on a framework of it is in somewhat linked to the role and the region. So we want to make sure that our team gets the salary that they want, which is fair where they live, and of course what happens in situations where team members move.
Yeah.
If they move to a region which is more expensive, the salary needs to be increased, because otherwise they won't be able to afford to live. But on the flip side, what if they move to a cheaper region? Yeah. What to do then? Yeah. So this really is a interesting topic to tackle.
Okay, so really the local knowledge and experience is key to do this transition well. Okay, thanks. Let's move a little bit more towards the topic of the talk, the mental well-being. Research showed that 52% of remote workers are suffering from some type of characteristics of a burnout. Of course, I would like to know how do we get this number down, but first, have you ever experienced some kind of burnout situation in your own life?
Yes, definitely. As I mentioned, I've been working mainly remotely for almost a decade, and I've always preferred it, but there's always been the option of going to the office if the company's been in the same city as myself, which then you have the time to meet and connect with your team members.
Yeah.
Whereas in a remote setting, that is almost completely taken away. And another big part of which contributes to burnout is that we don't have these clear, this is where my workday starts and this is where it ends.
Yes.
So you're at home, you're not, you don't have that, okay, it's whatever o'clock I need to commute home. You're already home. Sometimes you wake up straight on the laptop, and then it's way past your day's over, but you're still working on stuff. So it's much more difficult to stop, and then people don't often realize that they are getting burned out. The other big contributor to that is now we're on like back-to-back Zoom calls.
Yes.
And so I was discussing this last week with a group of students who are studying HR, that what were we doing before? We had a meeting at some place, and then you had to take time to either move to another room or location. So you always had to keep in mind this buffer so you wouldn't be late. And now it's, one call starts at 12, the other one is 12:30.
Yeah.
And then you're 1 minute late, your team is like, where are you? Like, still on the previous call.
Yeah.
So when do you have lunch? When do you go to the toilet? When do you take a moment to sort of breathe? These moments are now suddenly gone.
Yeah.
That's becoming a big issue.
Yeah. So then, what are we going to do to bring that number down? And I love the definition that the doctor just gave about not being yourself, feeling on edge. That was how she described the burnout. I think you can copy paste it to be a young parent as well, but for burnout it's definitely similar symptoms. How can leaders get that number down, that 52%? How can we make sure that we don't feel such symptoms?
Yeah, we have to have systems and policies in place. So, okay, if you've got a small startup, then you're kind of doing whatever you can. But when your company grows, you have to have these set rules. Okay, so this is how much holiday people should take.
Yes.
And it's not, holiday isn't a gift. It's something that should be enforced.
Yeah.
Because if people don't go on holiday, they will burn out, and then you will lose a good team member. Also, for these back-to-back meetings, that we could actually solve a little bit through tech when you set your Calendly links or whatever system you're using to always give you a buffer. But again, that should be enforced on a company level. This is what we do. Don't overbook yourself. Have some set times when you have focus time. When you have lunch, book it out of your calendar, because otherwise you're not going to have any lunch.
Yeah.
And this is what one of our founders, Shuo, also said, that she has days when she focuses more on sort of work that needs focus. She doesn't allow people to put meetings. She always books time for food and also for exercise. Yeah. So, be mindful of your calendar. Don't live it like, I can call whatever, because it gets out of hand quickly.
Yeah, I love that, especially those no meeting days. We have the same at Miro. On Wednesday we don't have meetings. Usually we end up with meetings, but we tend not to have meetings. I want to go back one step to what you said about the holiday policy. What is the holiday policy at Deel? Is it fixed days, or is people really able to choose how much they need?
So basically it is kind of unlimited policy. However, our people team were seeing that unlimited meant people weren't taking holidays.
No.
So we have people in different countries, and we've set that the sort of what you should take is at least 18 days per year. But if in your country it's higher, then take whatever is required. If in your country it's lower, still take the minimum 18 days.
Okay.
Same thing with let's say, parental leave. And these policies are really, really different per country.
Yes.
So US, you're expected at work the next day, which I don't know how that is possible. So we are trying to be flexible depending on what our team members need and what they expect.
Okay, then a question for you. How many holidays do you take per year? If you're a leader at Deel, so you should give the example.
I've taken some.
More than 18?
Not yet. I have time.
Okay.
Well, summer is coming, so I'm keeping it for that.
Okay, cool. Yes, then let's move a little bit over to the isolation that you might feel when you're being a remote worker. You never meet your team members in real life. This can be one of the drivers of a burnout. What would you advise leaders to do in their teams to overcome this obstacle of isolation?
Yes, that's also a very tricky thing to get right, because when COVID started, suddenly we're all locked at home. And then we have people who are families. The kids are there. You have to deal with the children whilst working, whilst maintaining your relationship and work and everything. And then on the flip side, you have people who maybe live alone.
Yeah.
So they don't have that social interaction. They have no one to speak to at home. So here I remember WISE had a really good policy. They have a mental health policy. So everyone gets some days with psychologists.
Okay.
But there are specific people in teams that are allocated to make sure that their teams are okay. Not just whether they're performing work-wise, but whether they are actually okay. And there are some signs which you can look at. If people aren't online anymore, they're not responsive in group chats, they have the camera off in the meetings.
Yes.
Then they encourage to just have a call or have a meeting with a video, ask what's happening. Because in a remote setting, what may also happen is maybe you're new, you don't know what you should be doing, you don't know who to ask, and then you're somehow isolated, and you're at home, you can't walk to the next desk and say hey, how do I do this? So it's really important to focus on onboarding, to make sure that your new team member feels welcome, they know where they can get the information, but also the social aspect of it. So if we're working remotely, it mainly is always about work.
Yes.
So how do we build friendships?
Yeah, for sure. And I think those moments of, let's say, non-transactional meetings with your colleagues are essential to build trust, because all the companies that you work for or with, they need to move fast, they need to make decisions quick, and if there's no trust, it's really hard, right, to make those decisions and or at least try out new things. What do you do to do what type of interventions, what type of non-transactional activities do you do with Deel, or what do you advise your clients to do?
Yeah, so at Deel, as a tech company, we've built it into the tech. So we acquired a company called Roots recently, and what they do is specifically managing that side of remote work. So there are a couple of Slack plugins which schedule a short call or a meeting with a team member in your company randomly. And I really like these. So it's just like a 15-minute or 30-minute human chat with your colleague. You get to know them, you get to know what they work on, and then later on you feel good, like, oh, that's a nice person. But it also helps you at work, because next time you have some kind of a problem, and let's say I talk to Fer from employee experience, I'm like, oh, okay, she will know the answer, I will ask her. And then we already have a relationship, and this conversation becomes easier. Also, what Roots does is, team members can put in what their interests are, and if there's certain topics that many people are into, it creates Slack channels. So you can have these kind of non-business chats. I'm part of Deel Travelers, Deel Investors, we have Deel Gamers, we have Deel LGBTQ, we have Deel gardeners.
Cool.
So, and these chats are really cool.
Nice.
Our CTO has taught me how to nurse my plants back to life. So, yeah, these sort of human topics
Yeah, nice.
are very important rather than, just work.
Yeah, for sure. I think to add to that, what I really love at what we do at Miro is that every new hire, and also even the CEO, we write a welcome letter about who we are, what drives us, and what really, what type of person we are. And we share that in the Slack, so even when we have more than 1,500 colleagues, everybody gets the chance to get to know you a bit more than just the work that you're going to do. And usually when I have a meeting with somebody that's new, I read this, and that creates that little more connection, and you have something to talk about besides work. And I think those things that you're trying out is a great way to start moving to that connected remote world, for sure. I know also you're a travel fan yourself. You're a big advocate of offsites with the team, right? Could you tell a little bit more about why offsites are so important?
Yes, so sadly we haven't done as many as we'd like to, but you build a completely different connection.
Mm-hmm.
So I've met up with my team members a couple of times. There was one offsite we had in Israel to meet all the team members there and meet the expansion team. And you start to build different relationships. You understand that behind this Slack message there is a person.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to understand that it's, maybe there's someone you've had some friction with, things like,
Yeah.
I hope this email finds you well. And then you go like, this did not. But then you see that these are real people and they are wonderful human beings, which sometimes we can forget, especially in the space of conflict when you're hiding behind Slack
Mm-hmm.
messages. And these really do bring a different level of trust. So I would advise, even if a company is completely remote first, to do these offsites, whether team-based or if the company is too large, you most likely will not be able to do a whole company-wide one.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can, do make them happen,
Mm-hmm.
because it really does make a difference in team connection.
It will pay off on the long term.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Any advice maybe for remote startups that don't have the budget to fly everybody to the same location? Is there a way that we can hack the offsites in a remote setting?
Yeah, of course, budget often is an issue. So if you have team members that are completely remote around the world and you don't have, hundreds of millions in funding, then, it's simply not possible. You have to allocate capital where it makes the most difference. But I guess then your first only option is to do some kind of online events. So at Deel we used to play bingo. I can't remember what software we used, but every week it shows a topic, and then you start playing bingo, and then you have some random chats.
Yeah.
I know people got quite bored of these, Friday drinks on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's about trying to come up with new activities that would keep it fresh, that people don't get bored, and maybe they don't want to drink in front of the Zoom call.
Yes.
That's a little bit depressing nowadays.
Iterate on your non-transactional activities as well. One question that popped up in my head: can you, as a leader of a company, can you make it mandatory for people to participate in those non-work related meetings? And should you make it?
I would say
mandatory?
no.
No?
I worked at a startup once that said like Friday drinks is mandatory, and you go like, why? and after that was said, less people turned up.
Okay.
Because it is, it's not part of your work, it's part of your free time, it's about socializing, so it's up to you as a leader to make it something that your team wants to turn up for, rather than saying like, hey, I demand you come here and have fun. That usually doesn't really work out.
Yeah.
So find different ways, understand what interests or common thoughts your team have, and then build something where people want to come, whether it's an offsite or whether it's a virtual event or anything like that.
Okay, thanks. Then going to the end of this talk, I would like to ask you two more questions, and then based on the knowledge you've gained over the last year at Deel, what do you think that the future has for us in the remote hybrid setting? What are we going to work towards?
Yes, hard to say. Don't have a crystal ball, sadly. But yeah, the remote work does come with a lot of challenges. It does come with a lot of benefits for many, so we can choose where we work and how we spend our time, and maybe people with families have more flexibility. But also on the flip side, I know many people with families that have said, like, I want to go back to the office, I can't work like this. The kids are like, getting on your back. So we need to find a way to understand different people's needs versus saying like, okay, we're doing this for everyone. So flexibility definitely is important. But now we are seeing that obviously there's a huge decline in people's mental health due to being locked down and not being able to interact. But on the other hand, people do expect remote now.
Yes.
They don't really want to go back to offices.
Yeah.
So where do you find this sort of balance? I think there's a lot of more work and thought that needs to be put into these processes.
Yes.
But yeah, because we don't really know what the consequences of all of this will be in the future. Because our normal has been changed to something completely new. So now we need to adapt.
Yeah. All right. And then I would like to ask for the audience, like 3 takeaways. What, as a leader of a company, should you definitely consider when building your remote team?
Yes, 3 things. So remote work now is the reality, so we can't roll that back. People expect it. Many people will not accept a role where that's not offered. So it is a thing that you need to keep in mind. But to make it work is firstly really need to focus on the onboarding. If you can, fly your candidate in for a week, get them to meet team where you have most of the people. If you are completely distributed like Deel is, then for us we do it a little bit differently. So we have a week of onboarding where you get to be talked through all the processes that are to do with your work, meet team members, meet leaders, meet people from different departments, so that you know where to turn to for questions. We encourage people to ask questions in every Slack channel when they don't know something, because otherwise, you will not know it. We also, through the Roots plugin, we have an org chart. So if you have a particular question about, let's say, finance or onboarding or sales, you can look in the org chart and you can find out who you need to ask, rather than thinking, oh my God, I'm too scared to ask, I don't know whom. But yeah, there are many companies that do fly people in, and they're really advocating for that. Second part is, I would say, keep in touch with your team and make sure that you really know that they are doing well, not just on their performance, but how did the onboarding go? How are they feeling? What's troubling them? What ideas they have? And lastly, I'm not quite sure. I mean, there is no one size fits all.
Yes.
So from your own company and team, you will learn new things. And I would say it's very important to listen to your team, because you can't run a business on your own. You need a team around you, and when you build a space where ideas are shared, it will benefit you and your team as well, and company.
Thanks. That were 3 great takeaways. Thank you so much, Liina, for sharing your knowledge with us. And with that, we're out of time, so thank you.
Thank you.